Captain V. Fedorov began a prototype of a semi-automatic rifle in 1906, working with future small arms designer Vasily Degotaglio as his assistant. A model was submitted to the Rifle Commission of the Russian Army in 1911, which eventually ordered 150 more rifles for testing. In 1913, Fedorov submitted a prototype automatic rifle with a strip-clip feed system fixed magazine, chambered in his own experimental rimless 6.5mm cartridge, called the 6.5mm Fedorov. His rimless ammunition was more compact than the Russian 7.26 by 54mm M-rim Russian cartridge. When fired from an 800mm barrel, this experimental cartridge propelled a pocketed jacket bullet weighed about 8.5 grams at an intentional velocity of 860 miles per second, with a muzzle energy about 3,140 joules, as his opposed to the 3,555 muzzle energy of the 6.26 by 54 mm rim Russian cartridge ammunition, but a barrel of the same length, the 6.5 Fedorov rimmed. The 6.5 Fedorov was tested late in 1913 for favorable results. In the autumn of 1915, Fedorov was posted as a military observer to France in the Mont Saint-Éloi sector. He was impressed by the inability of the French Chauchat and its firepower that it brought, but less about its mobility. According to Fedorov's memoirs, he came up with the idea of introducing into the Russian service a weapon with firepower intermediate between a rifle and a light machine gun, but the mobility compared to a rifle. His decision to adapt his semi-automatic rifle design for the purpose of a wartime expeditionary service, Fedorov sent the task upon his return to Russia in January 1916. He retained the mechanism of his semi-automatic rifles, the major addition of a selective fire switch. The magazine was replaced by a curved 25 detachable box magazine due to the limited trial nature of his production. Most of his parts were custom fitted and not interchangeable, including the magazine itself. Therefore, in practice, the Fedorov was issued to troops with only one magazine, which would be reloaded through the breech via a 5-round Arisaka stripper clip. So the magazine was detachable for the sake that it was only one magazine and it was not interchangeable with any other magazine. It had to feed from the top, but you could use a detachable mag, so it could be from the top or bottom. Production of the new cartridge was out of question, so they decided to convert the 6.5 Fedorov to the Japanese 6.550 Arisaka ammunition, which was in abundance because they had Arisakas, Lebels, Mosins, Enfields, having been purchased from Japan and Great Britain along with the Arisaka rifle itself. So about 7,363 Arisaka rifles were imported to Russia, along with the approximately 4 million cartridges for them. Domestic production of the Arisaka cartridge remained insignificant though, so they used older stockpile 4 million cartridges. The change of ammunition involved only minimal changes to the rifle, however, including the chamber insert and the new range scale for the rear sights. The somewhat less powerful Japanese cartridge was meant to be a muzzle velocity about 654 to 660 miles per second because of the constrained barrel length. The somewhat less powerful Japanese cartridge was meant to be the muzzle velocity was only about 654 to 660 miles per second because of the constrained barrel length. So in 1916, the Weapons Committee of Russia made a decision to order no less than 2,500 Fedorov Avtomats in the summer of 1916. A company of the 118 Izmila Regiment was equipped with 8 Fedorov Avtomats. Trained in tactics and the new weapon, they concluded that the Fedorov worked best as a crew served the weapon. The gunner aimed the Fedorov, the ammo bearer, with the Osaka rifle at his side as well, and both weapons used the same ammunition and the 5-round stripper clips. This allowed for greater flexibility. It also allowed for the arrow bearer to fire defensively as well, with the gunner reloading. After completing their testing and training, the company was deployed to the Romanian front in early 1917. There was supposed to be a report back to valuable combat experience with the new weapon, but this did not happen because the company was utterly destroyed in the Kerensky offensive. Commandant Duke Alexander Mikhailovich, the Russian telegraph back to his pilots, found it more suitable than the Shushat in light aircraft. So it was basically the Mondragon or the self-sladder. In early 1917, the order for Fedorov Avtomats were limited to 5,000 weapons. However, only about 100 Fedorov Avtomats had been produced before the collapse of the Russian Empire, and then in 1917, when production halted, it was under the provisional government. So the estimated cost in 1918, this is the Bolshevik era, was about 1,090 rubles in comparison to the cost of the Madison light machine gun, which was about 1,730 rubles at the time. So it was less expensive, but the Madison was more of a very complex inner workings gun, so I could see the price increase there. In 1920, Lev Kamenev found a Fedorov Avtomat to be a promising design and authorized limited production runs. The Avtomat was equipped for the Red Army units in the Kalia sector, participating in the Ski Battalion of Cheyov at Kinsky. During the Kalina uprising, reports combat experience with the gun during 1921 and 1922 were very positive, as long as a spare part or spare parts were available. In 1923, 10,000 copies of the 45-page manual for the gun were printed, so this was distributed to all factories around the Soviet regime era. Despite some noted reliability issues and performance issues, the Fedorov Avtomat had been deemed acceptable in the Red Army in 1924 on review. However, due to supply problems, the Soviet leadership decided to abandon all weapons using foreign ammunition. As a consequence, production of the Fedorov Avtomat was halted in October 1925, and only 3,200 Fedorov manufactured between 1915 and 1925. Fedorov's superior, General M.M. Filitov, was created and credited for introducing a shorter term for Avtomat for the gun, a neologism derived from the Greek word automaton and synonymous with the word of English automatic, and this was the one thing that stuck. And in written records, the new term was applied to the gun in the date of 1919, so it was never actually called the Fedorov Avtomat. In comparison, the Russian terminology of the word Avtomat denotes the assault rifle, although the historical term of the border meaning. The contemporary Western writers struggle to classify the Fedorov Avtomat. Some consider it the early predecessor to the AK-47, the ancestor of the modern assault rifle, while others believe Fedorov was just making the world's first assault rifle based on the argument of the chambering of one of the less powerful rifle cartridges in use, the Arisaka round. Still, other writers argue that the Surigati, that predated the Fedorov Avtomat 20 years early, was the first assault rifle because of its chambering and intermediate power of the 6.5mm and also needs 25 round magazines. It was subsequently withdrawn from service and put into storage. The last units given out were from the Moscow Penitentiary Red Banner Rifle Division in 1928 during the 1939-1940 Soviet-Finnish War. As an actual lack of individual automatic weapons due to the reintroduction of these stockpile Fedorovs into service, it was sent to the Karelin front. Mostly for military intelligence units, it was assumed that the Fedorov Avtomat were expended or destroyed during the war. This is very funny, the fact that they have limited automatic weapons, because it's 1928, and if I'm not mistaken, the DP-28 was manufactured and made around this time. But then again, it's not World War II skills, it's still being tested and still being actually put into production, so that makes kind of sense. But the Soviet War in 1939 to 1914 was at least 10 years to make about 10,000 guns. It amazes me, but we're not here about the DP-28 or the Soviet Union in 1939. So, is the Fedorov the first assault rifle in history? According to the first quote I said, it was supposed to be a light machine gun of Shosha and Madison origin, which reflected its tactical thinking behind the development of the weapon. But the fact that it had a detachable magazine, an interchangeable cartridge, and the fact that it had a very big muzzle velocity and the intermediate between a light machine gun and a rifle, I would say, and you're gonna hate me for this, it's still a machine gun. Battlefield 1 may make you think it is a actual gun of assault rifle, but Battlefield 8 is the first assault rifle ever made. It is a prototype, yes, but the word assault rifle was never made at that time. Even when the Sturmgewehr 44 was still in its prime, it was never called an assault rifle. Well, it was by the Nazi elites, but by the Americans and the Soviets it was called an automatic rifle. So the fact that it is a prototype, actual distinguished assault rifle, I might be talking out my ass because I'm not really a guns guy, but the first assault rifle to deem the name have an intermediate cartridge, reloadable detachable magazine would be the BAR. I'm just kidding with you. I'll cut my ass a bit more, but the Serengeti is not an assault rifle. Yes, it can fire. In fully automatic, has a not really detachable rounds. This is why. The Serengeti is a rifle conversion of the Carcano round and the Carcano rifle. So, in essence, it is a semi-automatic Carcano gun. Because the British actually tried this same tactic with a Enfield mounted lever action steampunk thing that would actually chamber the bullet for you. And I could even get the Farquhar Hill should be a intermediate cartridge as well. They have the Enfield, they have the British 305 round in it, so that could be considered an assault rifle. But can we really say the Fedorov Avtomat is an assault rifle? You know what, just for this fact, I will say it is the early predecessor. It is the design philosophy behind the assault rifle, but it is not an actual assault rifle. I would say it is the first assault rifle prototype in history. However, Fedorov wanted to create a machine gun, and in turn he created the first assault rifle prototype and blueprints in history. And that's why the Soviets kind of made the AK-47 before the Americans made the M16, because they had a long list of prototypes and they kind of stole the Sturmgewehr 44. Come on, Russia, you can't say you did. Why don't we just share the designs? Come on, you're communists, why don't you just share the designs? Come on, you can't be that. You can't be that capitalist, man. We share the designs, man. Anyway, that's it for the Fedorov Avtomat. Hope you enjoyed. This is a long episode. And it is long because, guess what? I didn't even stutter. I just went through it. Probably because I woke up early. But I hope there's not a lot of noise in the back. It's getting kind of noisy now, so I'm just going to end it. Hope you learned something. First assault rifle in history. Maybe, maybe not. Also, shout out to Captain Caleb, who is actually making the AK-47 video. Become a meme at this point. But he's supposed to make a AK-47 video, so this is the precursor. This is the precursor to the AK-47. So Fedorov Avtomat, Sturmgewehr 44, and the Shimor, which is known as the West as the PPSH, stolen design from the Shimor automatic semi-machine gun. So there you go. Hope you learned something about the Fedorov. And I should got enough gameplay to supplement this, I hope, because, you know, I do everything very authentically, so I'm not going to play as the Ottomans or the British or the Germans or the whatever, Austrians. I'm just going to play as the Russians, so I hope there's enough footage to compensate. Learn something, my dudes and my ladies.